Aikindo, she was left at the altar, but what she heard afterward made even the priests cry. The bride runs through the fields, weeping with her dress dragging in the dirt. Everyone comments on the scandal, but an Apache, who observed everything from afar, approaches and says something that silences even the priests. Subscribe to the channel and discover how the pain of rejection turned into something unforgettable. The bell of St. Anthony's Chapel rang insistently, its deep sound echoing. Through the hills that surrounded Siranias, a small town nestled in the interior of Minas Gerais, the June sky appeared as clear as spring water, without a single cloud to threaten the big day. Inside the church, decorated with cerrado flowers and white ribbons, the wooden benches creaked under the weight of guests who whispered and turned their heads constantly. Victoria stood beside the altar, her artisanal lace dress as white as freshly harvested cotton. Her trembling hands held a bouquet of everlastings, typical flowers of the region, known for maintaining their shape and color, even after drying as if defying time. Donna Inez, her mother, adjusted the hand-embroidered veil for the 10th time, a legacy of 3 generations of women in the family. "He's just late, my daughter," she whispered, more to convince herself than her daughter. Father Joachim checked, his wristwatch with increasing frequency, while the violinist repeated the same melody for the 3rd time. The minutes dragged like ants, carrying leaves larger than themselves. 1 hour late. The chairs began to creak more. The whispers increased. In volume, pitying looks multiplied in Victoria's direction. "Could something have happened?" she asked the priest, who merely shook his head without an answer. That's when her cousin ran in through the side door, his face red like someone bringing news that nobody wants to deliver. He approached her, and the priest leaned in and said something in a low voice. Victoria felt the ground open beneath her feet when she understood Rodrigo wasn't coming. He had fled in the early morning with the daughter of Mendonça, the farmer whose lands bordered the indigenous territories of the Zacriaba. The murmur in the church grew like a flood in the rainy season. Someone laughed in the back. A woman said too loudly, "It was to be expected, a rural schoolteacher and him the son of a merchant." Victoria felt her stomach turn and the air escape her. The tears came before she could contain them, running down the carefully applied makeup that had been done since dawn. She couldn't stay there for even 1 more second. She gathered her dress in her hands and ran, stumbling over her own steps, descending the church stairs and crossing the central square under the gaze of passers-by. She ran as if she could leave the humiliation behind, as if each step would take her away from the pain that squeezed her chest. She didn't hear her mother's calls, nor did she see when the bouquet fell from her hands, scattering along the dirt path. She headed toward the river, then along the trail that led to the forest, the white dress tearing on bushes, her now bare feet being wounded by stones. She didn't know how long she ran, only that when she could no longer, when the sobs wouldn't allow air to enter her lungs, she let herself fall on the bank of the Itacarambi River. In the distance, among the trees, Raoni observed, the young Zacriaba wasn't there to witness any celebration. He had approached the town to drop off some handicrafts at Sue Manuel's store, as he did every first Friday of the month. The indigenous people maintained a silent agreement with some local merchants. They were few, but fair. He saw when the white figure cut through the forest path, noticed the desperation in each step and decided to follow. Not out of curiosity, but out of concern. That part of the forest was close to the village, and lately strangers appeared frequently, interested in indigenous lands. Roni kept his distance, walking silently as he had learned since childhood. He saw when she fell to her knees at the riverbank, when her body was seized by sobs so intense they seemed to tear her chest. When Victoria finally fainted from exhaustion, her face marked by tears and dirt, he approached. He touched her wrist, still strong, and looked around. He knew he couldn't leave her there. The sun was beginning to set, and the night in the forest wouldn't be safe for a woman alone, especially dressed as a bride. In a gesture of care, he lifted her in his arms. The dress, once immaculate, now carried the marks of the desperate escape. Tears, mud, dry leaves. The veil still hung from her hair, like a stubborn reminder of what should have been. Raoni followed the path he knew by heart, carrying Victoria like someone carrying something precious and broken. He crossed the stream, at its shallowest part, went around the larger rocks and soon spotted the first huts of the APACHE, Zakriabah village. The children were the first to notice his arrival, pointing and running to call the adults. Elder Jurema, whose eyes had seen more than 80 rainy seasons, was the first to approach. She asked no questions. With a gesture, she indicated the straw hut where women cared for the sick and needy. "Place her there," she said in a low voice in the APACHE language. Inside the hut, 3 women were lighting the central fire. When they saw the unconscious young woman, they exchanged meaningful glances, but no word was spoken. With gentle gestures, they removed the torn veil, cleaned the face marked by tears and mud, and covered her with a cotton blanket dyed with anato. Jurema sat next to Victoria, placing her wrinkled hand on her forehead as if to measure her fever. "She is not sick in body," she murmured to the others. "She is sick in soul." A group of children clustered at the entrance of the hut, curious about the unexpected visitor. Among them was Mayara, a 7-year-old girl with large eyes as bright as ripe Djibouti kabas. Unlike the others, she didn't have her body painted with traditional designs, nor did she wear seed necklaces. Her movements were slower, her gaze deeper. Mayara was born unable to hear and rarely communicated, even through the gestures that the village had developed for her. However, at that moment, the girl approached the sleeping stranger and, to everyone's surprise, touched her face with delicacy. Jurema smiled, recognizing in the gesture something that not even she could explain. "Let her stay," ordered the elder, rising with difficulty. "When she wakes, we will know who she is and what she brings to our people." Raoni nodded and left the hut, looking one last time at the woman he had found. Something told him that this encounter would change more than just the day for both of them. Outside, the village council was already gathering, concerned about the arrival of the stranger. In recent months, the pressure on their lands had increased. The new mayor of Seranius, allied with local farmers, had made it clear that he would not renew the demarcation agreement that expired in exactly 30 days. "This woman could be a spy," suggested one of the older councillors. Raoni shook his head. "No. I saw her fleeing. She was in suffering." The discussion continued until Jurema left the hut and joined the circle. "Those who judge without knowing," she said firmly, "plant seeds of injustice." Inside the hut, while the council deliberated, Victoria was beginning to awaken to a reality completely different from the one she had known until then. Victoria woke with a start, her heart racing like a drum at a Saint Juan festival. For a moment, she didn't recognize where she was. The braided palm roof, the smell of dried herbs, the cozy warmth of the low fire. None of this belonged to her world. She sat up suddenly, and the memories came back in an avalanche. The altar, the looks, the desperate escape. Instinctively, she touched her own face, realizing that there was no more makeup or tears. Someone had cleaned her. She looked at her own body and saw that she was still wearing the wedding dress, although a colorful blanket covered her from shoulders to feet. "Where am I?" she murmured to herself, her voice hoarse from crying. "In the village of the people of great waters," replied a serene voice. Victoria turned and saw an elderly woman with hair as white as cotton sitting near the entrance of the hut. The brown skin, marked by time, seemed to tell stories without words. "Zakriabah?" asked Victoria, recognizing the description that her rural school students used to refer to their own people. The elder nodded with a slight movement of her head. "I am Jurema, guardian of memories, and you are the woman of the dead flowers." Victoria frowned, confused by the title. Jurema pointed to the remains of the everlasting bouquet that someone had collected and placed beside her improvised bed. "Our village is a 2-hour walk from your town. Raoni found you unconscious near the river." Victoria tried to stand up, but felt dizzy, which made her sit down again. "I need to go back. My mother must be worried." Jurema made a gentle gesture with her hand, as if brushing aside a premature idea. "Night has already arrived. In the dark forest, not even the most experienced tortoise finds its way. Rest. Tomorrow you will decide." At that moment, little Mayara entered the hut, carrying a gourd with fresh water. Her steps were silent, her gestures precise. She approached Victoria and offered the drink with both hands, in a ceremonial gesture she had learned by observing adults. Her black eyes fixed on the stranger with genuine curiosity, without judgment. Victoria accepted the gourd, drinking eagerly. Only then did she realize how thirsty she was. When she finished, she smiled at the girl and thanked her, but Mayara didn't respond. "She cannot hear your words," explained Jurema, "but she understands your heart." Victoria looked at the child again, noticing for the first time the absence of adornments and body paintings that she saw on other children who peeked through the entrance of the hut. "Why is she different?" she asked, genuinely interested. Jurema's face closed for a moment. "Mayara was born during the Great Storm, when the Itacarambi River overflowed and took half of our village. Her mother gave birth alone, clinging to a buriti palm trunk while the current tried to carry them away. The waters couldn't take them, but they took the sounds of the world from Mayara." The story silenced Victoria. She thought about her own problems, which suddenly seemed small in the face of this girl's struggle and that of her people. Mayara, sensing the visitor's emotion, touched her face with delicate fingers, as she had done while Victoria slept. It was such a pure gesture, so devoid of ulterior motives, that Victoria felt the tears return, this time not of desperation, but of a feeling she couldn't name. Outside, voices rose in discussion. Jurema rose with difficulty and left, leaving Victoria and Mayara alone. The girl, feeling at ease, took one of the fallen everlastings and began to braid it into Victoria's disheveled hair. Her agile fingers moved with the precision of one who intimately knows artisanal work. Outside, the council continued to meet, now with Raoni's presence, who explained how he had found the stranger. "She poses no danger," he affirmed with conviction. "I saw in her eyes only pain, not threat." One of the councillors, Ubirajara, struck his staff on the ground forcefully. "We cannot trust anyone from the city now. Only 30 days remain until the final deadline. If the mayor doesn't renew the demarcation, we will lose everything we have left." Jurema, who had just joined the circle, raised her hand, silencing everyone with her natural authority. "The woman's name is Victoria. She is a teacher at the rural school where our children study. I know her name because Mayara has already come home speaking of her through gestures." Raoni looked surprised. "The new teacher? The one who teaches about our culture to the children?" Jurema nodded. "The little ones like her. They say she respects our customs, that she learns our language." A murmur ran through the council. The tension visibly decreased. Ubirajara, however, remained skeptical. "Still, her arrival at such a critical moment?" Jurema looked directly at him. "You speak of coincidences. I speak of destinies that intertwine. Let her stay as long as she needs. Perhaps it is she who needs us, or perhaps it is we who need her." The next morning, Victoria woke to the singing of birds and the buzz of the village already active. The wedding dress, now completely ruined, had been replaced by a simple tunic of raw cotton and a long skirt dyed with annatto red. Her hair was braided with straw threads and adorned with the everlastings that Mayara had placed the night before. She left the hut, feeling the gentle morning sun touch her face. The village was larger than she had imagined, about 20 huts arranged in a semicircle, facing the river visible in the distance. In the center, a fire where 3 women prepared what appeared to be the collective breakfast. Children ran and played, some stopping to observe her with curiosity. Older men carved wood, while younger ones prepared for hunting or fishing. Victoria felt out of place, but strangely, she did not feel afraid. Mayara came running to meet her, taking her hand and pulling her toward the center of the village. With precise gestures, she indicated that Victoria should sit with the women. One of them, younger, offered her a gourd with corn porridge and wild honey. "Thank you," said Victoria, receiving a warm smile in return. While eating, she observed the movement of the village, the natural organization that seemed to exist without the need for words. That's when she noticed Raoni approaching. She immediately recognized him as the man who had saved her, although she didn't exactly remember what he looked like. Her memory of the previous day was a blur of emotions. Tall, with broad shoulders and a bearing that inspired respect, Raoni wore only simple shorts and had his bare torso painted with geometric designs in Genipap. "Is the teacher feeling better?" he asked, sitting at a respectful distance. Victoria felt her face warm. "How do you know I'm a teacher?" Rowney smiled. "My nephew studies at the rural school. He talks a lot about the teacher who came from the capital and who learns words in APACHE." Victoria nodded, remembering her students. Many were Zakriaba, but she had never visited the village. The school was in the rural area, halfway between Siranius and the indigenous lands. "I need to go back," she said, more to herself than to Rowney. "My mother must be desperate, and the classes—" Rowney nodded. "I can take you whenever you want, but perhaps you might want to stay. A little longer." There was a suggestion in his voice, something that Victoria couldn't completely decipher. Before she could respond, Ubirajara approached, leaning on his carved wooden staff. His narrow eyes examined Victoria with distrust. "The city teacher came to see how we live before they take everything from us," he asked with bitterness. Victoria didn't understand. "What do you mean?" Ubirajara made a broad gesture with his arm, encompassing the entire village. "In 30 days, if the paper isn't signed again, this land will no longer be ours. The new mayor wants to hand everything over to the farmers. He says we need progress, that Indians don't produce." The revelation hit Victoria like a punch. She knew vaguely about the land dispute, but hadn't imagined the situation was so serious. "But you have rights guaranteed by the Constitution," she argued, remembering the history classes she taught. Ubirajara laughed without humor. "Paper doesn't protect those who have neither weapons nor money, teacher." Jurema approached, interrupting the conversation. With a look, she made Ubirajara step away. "Come with me," she said to Victoria. "I want to show you something." She led Victoria to a smaller hut away from the others. Inside, wooden shelves supported dozens of ceramic pots, woven baskets, and ritual objects. "This is our place of memory," explained Jurema. "Here we keep our history." She took a particularly old basket and showed it to Victoria. "This was made by my great-grandmother. She wove it while fleeing from the Bandeirantes who wanted to enslave our people. Each generation adds a fiber, keeping it alive." Victoria touched the basket with reverence. She felt privileged to be there, to receive that trust. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. Jurema looked at her with eyes that seemed to see beyond the present. "Because you also carry a broken basket, teacher, and perhaps here among us, you can learn to weave it again." The elder's words touched something deep in Victoria. She thought about everything she had left behind, the humiliation, the failed marriage, the pitying looks, and suddenly, she realized that perhaps her desperate escape had actually been the first step towards something greater that she still didn't fully understand. The following days brought a calm that Victoria had not expected to find. She sent word to her mother through one of the young men from the village who worked at the Siranius market on Saturdays. Donna Inez responded with a short note. "Come back when you're ready. Your classroom waits." No mention of the groom, the broken marriage, the whispers of the town. Victoria understood what was between the lines. Her mother, a woman of few words and much strength, gave her permission to heal away from curious eyes. Mornings in the village began early, with the rooster's crow and the aroma of wood burning in the outdoor stoves. Victoria adapted to the routine with surprising ease. She helped prepare food, learned to weave straw for baskets and mats, and observed the older women preparing medicines with carefully harvested herbs. Mayara became her shadow. The girl followed her everywhere, teaching her through gestures, the E. Names of plants, animals, stars. In return, Victoria began to adapt signs she knew from Brazilian Sign Language, creating their own code between them. It was on a clear sky afternoon that Raoni invited Victoria to see the boundaries of the Zakriaba lands. They walked side by side for almost an hour, crossing plantations of cassava, corn and pumpkin, until they reached a wire fence that cut through the landscape like a scar. "Here begins Mendonça's farm," explained Raoni, pointing to the other side where pastures extended to the horizon. "The same Mendonça whose son," Victoria completed, feeling a knot in her throat. Raoni nodded. The same, and also the main party interested in our lands. Victoria looked around, trying to understand. But why does he want more land? He already has so much. Rowney pointed to a distant elevation. Down there, where the river makes the curve, they discovered minerals. They say it's worth a lot, and our lands are the shortest way to get there. The revelation fell like a stone in Victoria's stomach. Now she understood the rush, the pressure on the renewal of the demarcation. It wasn't about agriculture or progress, it was about exploitation. How are you preparing to face this, she asked, feeling strangely part of that struggle. Rowney sighed, running his hand through the black hair that fell over his shoulders. We've sent documents to Brasilia, asked for support from organizations, but time is running out, and in the city few support our cause. They returned to the village in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Upon arrival, they found unusual agitation. A group of men was arguing heatedly in the center of the village. Ubirajara gestured, his face contorted with anger. What happened? Rowney asked one of the young men who was watching from a distance. Men from the city came. They said the deadline has been reduced. We now have only 15 days, not 30. Victoria felt her blood freeze. The arbitrary change of the deadline was clearly a maneuver to put even more pressure on the community. She approached the group, listening to the discussion. We should fight, said one of the younger men. If necessary, with our own hands. Jurema, who was observing from her wooden bench, made a gesture asking for silence. When everyone turned to her, the elder spoke with a surprisingly firm voice. Violence is the path of those who have no wisdom. We have something stronger. We have memory, we have right, we have truth. Her eyes met Victoria's. And perhaps we have something more. The group's attention turned to the teacher. Victoria felt the weight of the gazes, the silent expectation. What could she, a woman who couldn't even complete her own marriage, do? A woman who had fled instead of facing humiliation? I don't know how I can help, she admitted honestly. I'm just a teacher. Jurema smiled, like someone keeping a secret. Words can be weapons when used by the right heart. That night, while the village slept, Victoria remained awake, observing the stars through the opening in the roof of the hut. She thought about what Jurema had said, about words as weapons. She remembered the law book she had studied in college before deciding to become a teacher. She remembered the historical documents about the Zakri Aba that she had researched for her classes. An idea began to form in her mind, tenuous as a spider-web thread but persistent. The next morning she sought out Rowney. I need to go to the city, she announced. There's something I can do, but I need access to the internet, to the City Hall archives. His face lit up with contained hope. I can take you, let's go right now. Before leaving, Victoria went to say goodbye to Mayara, who was playing near the river with other children. The girl seemed to intuit that something important was happening. With quick gestures, she took from her neck a necklace of red seeds and placed it on Victoria's. It was a simple gift but loaded with meaning. The guabiroba seeds were considered protective among the Zakri Aba. Victoria hugged the girl, silently promising that she would do everything in her power to protect that place that had become in such a short time a refuge for her wounded heart. The path to Serranius never seemed so short. Rowney and Victoria walked side by side, exchanging few words but sharing a growing determination. Upon reaching the limits of the city, Victoria felt her stomach turn. She knew she would be the object of stares and comments, the abandoned bride who had disappeared for days. Are you sure you want to do this? Asked Rowney, noticing her hesitation. Victoria touched the seed necklace on her neck, as if seeking strength from it. I am. Some humiliations are worth it when they serve a greater purpose. They entered the city through the municipal market, avoiding the central square. Even so, Victoria felt the gazes that followed her, heard the whispers behind her back. An older woman even made the sign of the cross upon seeing her. The bride who turned Indian, someone murmured. Victoria raised her chin and went forward, guiding Rowney to the small municipal library where her friend Teresa worked. Teresa widened, her eyes upon seeing her, but hugged her with genuine affection. We were worried. Your mother said you were fine, but... Victoria gently interrupted her. I need your help, Teresa. and your computer. In the following hours, Victoria immersed herself in digital archives, government websites, and historical documents. Raoni observed, impressed with her determination and knowledge. Teresa brought coffee and helped locate additional material. When the sun began to set, Victoria finally leaned back in her chair, a tired but victorious smile on her lips. "I found it," she said simply. What she had discovered was powerful. Documents from the time of the military dictatorship showing that the original demarcation of the Zakriabar lands had been illegally reduced in 1978, favoring local farmers. More importantly, she found a presidential decree from 1996 that guaranteed the revision of these demarcations if evidence of tampering was presented. "This means we don't just need the renewal," she explained to Raoni. "We can demand a complete revision of the demarcation, recovering areas that were taken decades ago." Raoni looked at her with a mixture of admiration and hope. "How did we never find this before?" Victoria smiled. "Because it was hidden in technical archives using complex legal language. They counted on the difficulty of access to information." When they left the library, it was already night. Victoria decided to stop by home to see her mother before returning to the village. Raoni agreed to wait for her at the entrance to the city. "Be careful," he asked, in a tone that revealed more than casual concern. The path to the simple house where she had grown up was a test for her newly discovered courage. Neighbors peeked through windows. Children stopped playing to watch her pass. When she finally arrived, she found Donna Inés on the porch, as if waiting for her. The embrace between mother and daughter was silent and strong. "You're different," observed Donna Inés, holding her daughter's face between calloused hands. "There's something new in your eyes." Victoria told everything. The welcome in the village, the threat to indigenous lands, the discovery she had made. Donna Inés listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. "And Rodrigo?" asked Victoria, finally facing the name she had avoided until then. Donna Inés made a dismissive gesture with her hand. "He came back yesterday with his tail between his legs. Mendonça's daughter left him when her father discovered he didn't have a penny." Victoria was surprised to realize that the news caused no pain, only a slight sense of irony. "He came here," continued Donna Inés, "said it was a mistake, that he wants to talk to you." Victoria felt a chill in her stomach. Part of her wanted this confrontation, this chance to say everything that had remained stuck in her throat. Another part simply wanted to move forward without looking back. "What did you tell him?" she asked. Donna Inés smiled, a rare smile that illuminated her severe face. "I told him that my daughter had found a better path." After a simple and quick dinner, Victoria said goodbye to her mother, promising to return soon. She was anxious to share her discovery with the village, to start the legal process that could protect the Zakriabar lands. Little did she know that, while she was gathering evidence in the library, someone was watching her. Someone who had run to inform Farmer Mendonça that the abandoned teacher now represented a new threat to his plans. When Victoria arrived at the agreed-upon spot, Raoni wasn't there. She waited a few minutes, anxiety growing. That's when she heard footsteps approaching. She turned, expecting to see her friend, but met Rodrigo's cold gaze. "So it's true," he said, his voice laden with contempt. The city teacher turned Indian. Victoria felt her heart accelerate, but not from fear, from anger. "What do you want, Rodrigo?" He came closer, the smell of alcohol evident in his breath. "I came to save you from shame, Victoria. I'm willing to start over, to forget this escape of yours." His words were sweet, but his eyes revealed something different, calculation, not remorse. "After all," he continued, "what will your students say when they find out their teacher lives like a savage?" That was the last straw. Victoria stepped forward, confronting him without fear. "My students will say that their teacher learned more about dignity and honor in 1 week with the Zakriabar than in years in the city." Her voice was firm, her eyes did not waver. "And now, if you'll excuse me, I have a people to help save their lands." She tried to pass by him, but Rodrigo grabbed her arm forcefully. "Don't you understand? Mendonça knows what you're doing. He sent me here to convince you to stop this nonsense about old documents." The revelation confirmed Victoria's suspicions. Rodrigo was involved in the farmer's plans. Perhaps he always had been. "Let me go," she demanded, trying to break free, "or you'll regret it." Rodrigo laughed, tightening his grip on her arm. "And who's going to make me regret it? Your savage friends?" The answer came in the form of a firm hand on his shoulder. Raoni emerged from the shadows, accompanied by 2 other men from the village. "Let her go," he said simply. Rodrigo hesitated, but Raoni's imposing presence made him back off. "This isn't over," he threatened, moving away. "You don't know who you're messing with." When he disappeared into the darkness, Victoria finally breathed. "How did you find me?" she asked Raoni. "I never lost sight of you," he replied. "I saw when you entered your mother's house and waited, watching. When I saw the man approach the agreed spot, I called for reinforcements. His gaze was intense, protective. We wouldn't let you face this alone." On the way back to the village, Victoria told Raoni about Rodrigo's confirmed involvement with Mendonça. "Now they know we've discovered something important. They'll try to stop us." Raoni nodded, his face serious under the light of the growing moon. "Then we have to be faster than them." Upon arriving at the village, they found Jurema and the council gathered around the central fire, as if they knew important news would arrive that night. Mayara, who should have been sleeping, ran to hug Victoria, checking with her fingers if she was whole, unharmed. Victoria smiled at the girl, caressing her black hair. "I'm fine," she signaled with her hands, using the gestures they had developed together. "And I've brought hope." That night, under the starry sky and around the fire that never went out, Victoria shared with the village what she had discovered. She explained the documents, the presidential decree, the legal process they could initiate. She spoke about justice, about ancestral rights, about the strength of truth against greed. And as she spoke, she realized that something had changed within her. The emptiness left by the failed marriage had been filled by a greater purpose, a cause that transcended her personal pain. When she finished speaking, a respectful silence hung over the group. It was Ubirajara who broke it, raising his old staff. "The teacher has brought more than words," he declared, his grave voice echoing in the night. "She has brought struggle. And we, people of the Great Waters, know how to fight when necessary." Jurema then stood up, walking to the center of the circle. She took from inside her garments a small leather pouch, from which she removed a handful of red earth. "This earth," she said, "was collected by my grandmother on the day the first white men arrived with papers saying our land was no longer ours." She threw the handful into the fire, making the flames crackle. "Today we begin to bring it back." Her eyes met Victoria's, "with the help of the woman of the flowers that do not die." The following days were of intense activity. The entire village mobilized. The elders gathered oral accounts, the young people mapped territorial landmarks, and the women prepared food for everyone. Victoria became the center of this movement, transforming the hut where she was staying into an improvised office. Raoni was her right hand, bringing information and coordinating the young people. They worked side by side, from dawn to dusk, united by a purpose that transcended any personal feeling. Although these grew silently, like invisible roots that sustain everything that flourishes above. The deadline was approaching. Only 10 days remained when they finally gathered all the documentation, old maps, testimonies from the elders, and evidence of the tampering with territorial boundaries. "We need to file this with the federal court in Montes Claros," Victoria explained to the council, "and we need visibility." Jurema proposed something unprecedented, a peaceful walk of the entire village to Serranias, and from there to Montes Claros, where they would deliver the documents not only to the court, but also to the press. "We will show our strength through peace," she concluded. Mendonça soon reacted. The next morning, the police appeared. Sheriff Assis demanded to speak with the leaders, alleging complaints of agitation. Raoni faced him calmly. "There is no invasion, just a people exercising their constitutional right." The sheriff left displeased, unable to prevent the demonstration. On the eve of the march, the village participated in the traditional body painting. Victoria received her painting from Jurema's hands, a spiral symbolizing transformation. At night, during the preparation ritual, Ubirajara surprised everyone by calling Victoria to the center of the circle, offering her his own staff. "Tomorrow, you will walk at the front, by my side, not as a visitor, but as part of us." When everyone retired, Victoria remained by the fire. Raoni approached, sitting beside her. "I'm thinking about how life takes turns," she said. 2 weeks ago, I was preparing for a wedding. I thought I knew what happiness was. Now I realize I was just following a path that others had traced for me. "And now, what path do you choose?" he asked. "One that I never imagined. But that somehow seems to have always been waiting for me." Dawn brought the bustle of the village preparing. When they were about to depart, a jeep approached. It was Donna Inez, accompanied by Teresa and other people from the city. "You didn't think you were going without us, did you?" she said, hugging her daughter. "We came to show that not everyone in the city thinks like Mendonça." The march began at 8 o'clock. At the front went Ubirajara, Jurema, Raoni, and Victoria. When the peaceful procession reached Serranias, they found the police forming a cordon in front of the city hall. Mayor Gomez, Mendonça, and Rodrigo observed with tense expressions. "We haven't come to cause trouble," announced Victoria. "We've come to exercise our right to justice." She handed a copy of the documents to the sheriff. The mayor stepped forward. "This is a provocation." It was Donna Inez who responded, "The only disturbance here is injustice, and we, citizens of Serranias, support the cause of the Zacriaba." Journalists were arriving, photographing and filming. Mendonça, furious, shouted, "These lands were legally acquired." Raoni faced him calmly. "Your father paid for stolen lands, and now justice will decide." The farmer left with long strides, followed by Rodrigo. The mayor, noticing the cameras, changed his strategy. The city hall respects the right to demonstrate and will await the court's decision. It was exactly what they had hoped for: visibility and the public retreat of the authorities. As they headed for the buses, Mayara pointed to the church. There was Father Joaquim, the same one from the failed wedding. His eyes met Victoria's and he made an almost imperceptible gesture, an acknowledgement, perhaps even a blessing. The same church that had witnessed her humiliation now witnessed her strength. The filing of the documents with the federal court occurred without incidents. On the bus back, Victoria asked Jurema what would happen. "Now we have planted the seed, and like all seeds, it will need time and care to grow, but you won't be alone to care for it." 3 months later, the judge accepted the request for revision and issued an injunction protecting the Zacriaba lands. The case had gained national repercussion. The rural school was transformed, with a bilingual library and a program that valued both academic knowledge and Zacriaba wisdom. Mayara flourished, developing a communication that mixed Brazilian Sign Language with traditional gestures, a bridge between two worlds like Victoria. On a September afternoon, Victoria met Raoni at the entrance to the village. "The judge has scheduled the final hearing for next month," he said. "We'll be ready," she responded. They observed the village at sunset, the children playing, the elders talking. "When I found you that day," said Raoni, "I thought you were a spirit of the forest." "A spirit in tears," laughed Victoria. "A spirit in transformation. Like all of us, like our land." Their fingers intertwined naturally. Victoria thought about the torn dress, the everlasting bouquet, the path that had brought her there. Some flowers never die. They just find new soil to flourish. They walked hand in hand toward the center of the village where the fire was already burning, not as teacher and indigenous person, but as two beings who, through unexpected paths, had found each other and together a cause greater than themselves. And as night fell over the land of the Zacriaba, Victoria knew that some humiliations can be blessings in disguise, doors that close so that others, larger and more true, can open. If you were moved by this journey of transformation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like and share in the comments. Just as Victoria found her true path through connection with the Zacriaba,